Good morning, folks, and welcome to the fourth virtual meeting of the Yorkshire EV Club. Today we've got Ivan with us, we've got Ian, we've got Paul, David, we've got Greg. Greg does the Take It EV podcast. We've got John Gibbons, the guru behind the Yorkshire EV website. And we've got John Timmins, who is currently on a walk, hence the reason his video's off. But he'll be talking to us shortly. So we each want to bring a little something to this video, and obviously it'll just be a natural, fluid conversation. Hope you enjoy what we've got to say. So first of all, to Paul Carnell. Paul, you had something you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I've got a sister. She's lost a partner recently, and she has a disability card, but obviously it was through her partner, and that's going back. And she's got up to £7,000 to spend on an EV. Thank you for insurance purposes, but well, an EV. But she said that she wants a car, an ICE car. But I'm trying to convince her to go to an EV because A, she doesn't work. B, she needs something. I'm thinking 2 years down the line, where if she had an ICE car, she'd be paying for servicing. If it were a diesel, it could be injectors and various other faults with the car. And I'm trying to convince her to actually get an EV. So, I mean, my argument up to now has been just sending her a couple of videos and that, like that Quentin Wilson one, where he said it's the best value EV to have, little cost you nothing and things like that.
I think the crux of your argument...
She's really dubious about it. Because, I mean, you can laugh at this, but she says, yeah, but my electricity bill will go up. And she's actually on Octopus, but this is what she said to me the other day. And I tried to convince them, yes, it might go up the electricity bill, but you'll not be paying for fuel for the car.
Yeah, your petrol bill will go down considerably, won't it?
It's really difficult to try and get her head around that, you know, that she wouldn't be buying petrol. And I'm just wondering if your lads could give me any pointers in any other arguments I can put forward to her. You know,
Ivan's spreadsheet says it all, doesn't Ivan's spreadsheet says it all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, what the other thing we've also got Paul is work out is how many miles she's going to do a day, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I've already discussed this with her, and obviously she's not confident to drive to Scarborough or Skegness, or she lives in Sheffield or anything like that. So she'd probably only use it to go backwards and forwards from take the young lad to school or college. She's got two boys, one at 18 was going to university and one at 16 who's just about, I think this is his last year at school, then he's going to college. They are two big guys, so like something like a G-Wiz, no, she wouldn't fit in one, if you understand what I mean. So I'm thinking a Nissan Leaf. I'm not sure about the Zoe because then it's £50 a month for the battery rent. Your lease.
You showed us a really nice example of that grey the grey Nissan Leaf with all its battery intact. That looked really nice. That would even interest me if I was going for a second EV.
Yeah, what I've got to do is next week is I've actually got to get her, hopefully, in one. It doesn't matter where it is. I mean, I think I've seen one in Sheffield down London Road area, but I think the battery bars, there's only about 8 or 9 bars of battery on it. But it doesn't matter if I can get a sat in one.
An easy thing you can do is get hooked up with EV Man and people like that on YouTube, because he's done a series on affordable EVs, and he's gone through the price ranges. There might be some at the lower end where she might just think. I'm thinking an old Nissan Leaf is the answer, really. No battery rental.
Yeah.
And if she's not, by the sounds of it, she's doing so little mileage that it wouldn't matter if she's got a little bit of battery deg.
The only other thing about driving a petrol car short distances all the time is you're going to block up the catalytic converter, or if it's a diesel car, you're going to block up the DPF. So an EV would make sense.
Yeah.
I can attest to the fact that having an ICE car on the short distances is terrible. That was one of the bigger pushes that I had before I moved on to Leith. I used to live in Belfast, where I would do 10, 20 mile journeys all the time. And I moved back to London. I started doing 1-2 miles, and the DPF on my car just basically blew up. And it was a brand new car, so I ended up spending hundreds of pounds on fixes. It was terrible.
Yeah, because the DPF doesn't have time, or the catalytic converter doesn't have time to reach its temperature. It's got DPF effectively burns the rubbish out, and the same as the cat gets up to, I think it's well over 800-900 degrees, maybe even higher.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
1 mile, it's not going to work.
This is the reason why I don't want this to turn into run, but I don't know why people like that do deliveries, especially post office, around the country, not just in London, ditch their diesels and petrols and just move altogether to EVs, because they don't do huge mileages. They got burned by Renault used to have a van, and it was terrible in terms of the reliability. So they had trials that have failed, and they kind of burned themselves and us. But in your case, Paul, the second-hand EV is perfect. And in Nissan, as much as I've got a gripe with them.
I mean, I've looked at 1 or 2 of them, and I thought to myself, well, if there's 1 or maybe 2 bars missing, then I think, like, even with a 50-60 mile range for it would be quite adequate.
The thing for me as well, Paul, is that a lot of people don't consider the fact that if you get a really short range EV like that one that covers 99% of your journeys, the amount you're saving every month means that if you want to go onto a long journey and you really need a nice car, or you can't get a kind of Tesla or whatever, you could hire one. For the amount you save, you could hire a really, really, really lovely car that you use once or twice a year, and that's it. And you get a better car for the purpose of going long distance than the actual thing you need there.
Yeah, well, our plan, I've not mentioned this to her, but our plan B, get one of them insurance sites and borrow Big Brother's 40 kilowatt hour Leaf.
Yeah, exactly. So things like cover, which cover you for a week, a day, an hour, or something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
Then that's all you really need, isn't it? So you need, like you say, a week's worth. You could probably just swap around for a week, couldn't you?
Yeah, because like my commute to her is 25 miles return. It just wouldn't bother me.
Exactly, and that's the kind of thing as well that we might be able to do when the kind of the wider EV community is kind of encourage this kind of thing to basically go, right, okay, well, those people who are struggling, who are thinking about it, is going to go, well, I'll swap you.
Yeah.
For no particular cost, I'll swap you for a week as long as it covers my needs. You can have my longer range EV, I'll have your shorter range EV, and that's it. Better for your environment, better for you. Out of pocket, you get everything you need.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's something I can put to her next week.
So we've got a few possible solutions there, Paul. So you need to go away and work your charm, which I know worked very well. And she'll be driving an EV in no time at all.
That's my wife.
So I've just come to Mr. John Gibbons, who wanted it. You had a subject you wanted to cover, John.
Yeah, very similar actually to what you were saying, Paul, in that, I mean, at the moment, I'm not carless, but obviously I've got 2 ICE cars on the drive. One of them is my wife's. It's a Peugeot 206, not the electric one, I'm afraid, 306 rather. And I'm driving a Honda Insight Mark II, which, it's great, it's fine. The reason I've only thought about it in the last few days or so is that my Insight is now slowly developing a habit of draining the 12-volt battery while it's stationary, because obviously I'm driving to work 1 day a week rather than 5. So 3 weeks on the trot, my battery's running out. So what I'm doing is I'm just starting to look again for about the 18th time this year, just to see what's available for an EV car. Now, I drive about 20 miles to work, 20 miles back again, roughly. Which obviously for the odd journey is absolutely fine. But this is the age-old problem where it's the one journey in 100 where I will drive down to Essex, for example. Obviously not currently, but I'll drive to them. They're about 220 miles away. And if I was to get a brand new EV, fine, I could get a car that could comfortably do 100, 200 miles, real world miles, all be fine. Stop off at services halfway down the A1, charge and carry on. But my budget at the moment, I cannot buy a brand new car straight away. Now I'm very old school in that every time I've bought a car, I've paid cash for it. Not cash, but I think the car I got, I paid 7.5 for, saved up for it, but that's it. I don't have to spend any more on it. It's mine. I've never really done hiring or PCP, or I don't even know what PCP means, to be honest with you. But I guess the short question then is, for someone who wants to jump on the EV bandwagon quickly, if I'm allowed to call it that, without emptying my bank account, but still to have a reasonable mileage, I'm still trying to find the best way of doing it. I mean, I guess this could be applied to buying any car, but specifically because it's an EV, there are fewer long-range EV cars on the market, the second-hand market, just because they've not been around long enough. So what would basically be, out of your guys' opinions, the best thing for me to look at? Should I buy, for 7-8 grand, whatever, a second-hand Nissan Leaf with an average battery, and then, like you say, hire a car once in a while? Or do I get something bigger, which is similar to what I drive? I mean, I love the Ioniq, but obviously it's a bit more expensive than what I can afford. So what, in your opinion, would be the best way for me to jump on this EV wagon, really?
I would go, John. My personal opinion is maybe look at, I mean, I did this. I owned cars for years and years and years that were within my budget that I could afford, in terms of what I could afford to pay for almost out of my bank account or with a limited amount of credit. I think the solution to your problem and getting the car you want is changing your ownership model and changing the way you think about owning a car or not owning it. I think maybe a PCP or finance deal might be the way to go to get a better car for less money, but you don't own it at the end. That's the rub, really.
Well, PCP, you have an option to purchase. So it's only PCH, which is personal contract hire, which you have a lease effectively, which you don't ever have an option to buy it.
Okay.
PCP is effectively a really good way of getting a cheap car, a cheap payment in terms of every month. And they're available on used and new. It doesn't have to just be a new car. And that means basically you're essentially paying for what that company thinks is a depreciation value of that car over time.
Okay.
So you're not actually you're actually paying basically depreciation plus an amount of interest.
Okay.
Now their rates of depreciation can vary. With EVs, they're often overemphasized. So like, I know recently I looked into the e-Niro, and that PCP deal was saying after like 36 months it was going £37,000 car would only be worth 13,000. So the payments on PCP were actually quite high because of they thought the difference in price would be so much. Now the realistic system is that with electric cars, the depreciation is actually a lot slower than with your standard internal combustion cars. Because there's a bigger demand out there than there is supply at the moment in time. That's going to continue, and obviously with things like the ULEV and things like that, so where the different places in the world where they're restricting emissions, it's only going to become more and more of an issue. And like you say, there's a small amount of used EVs out there. So if you get a used EV now, it could well be worth a lot more than the balloon payment on your PCP. So you potentially could go to point of owning it after those 36 months, 48 months, whatever you want, and your car could be worth more anyhow. The only thing with PCP is that if you choose to hand it back, then the company will look at the car, and basically if you've got a ding on it, things like that, you'll pay a lot of amount for doing small repairs. If you've gone over the amount of mileage that you state you are going to put in it, then you'll pay a lot of money for the kind of difference in there. So okay. A PCP is a good way of getting into a car for a cheap monthly payment if you effectively want to purchase it at the end of the agreement, or if you want to have the option to do so.
Right.
So it's a really good way of having that monthly payment being a small value. And with EVs, what you'll find is that a lot of that monthly payment that you're paying out for on a PCP deal, if you can get a good PCP deal especially, will actually be covered by the lower costs you'll have in terms of your fuel payment, if you want to call it that way, but you know, you're paying out for it to drive the car, and things like the maintenance of the vehicle. So they'll be much reduced. All these kind of things will be reduced, and it sometimes works out that you even get a benefit. So I was lucky enough to get the deals with Nissan Leafs. There's loads of Nissan Leafs coming off PCP deals from new. I got one that was used. I paid £10,500 for it. When my car got smashed into, my car was worth £10,500, and I'd driven it 30,000 miles. And it obviously wasn't in quite the same condition as I bought it in. So that's what I got on my insurance. My insurance payout was basically that, was the amount I paid for it. So I actually drive the car around free. I don't make any money.
I think we're struggling to hear you, I'm afraid now. Sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it must be really windy where he is.
Yeah, sorry. I did say I was going up to see the windmills, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not surprisingly, it's windy up there.
I think I got the most of what you were saying, though. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also these days,
sorry.
PCP always used to be where a lot of people used to say that you would have equity in your car when you finish the agreement. And recently that hasn't been the case. So I think people were always told, look, put a deposit in, you pay a very low monthly payment, and when you get towards the end of the agreement, you'll have equity in the car. That equity will pay the deposit on the next one, and on you go. And obviously people like that because they thought every 3-4 years they can have a brand new car, and they love that. And that hasn't been the case of late. So people have been coming out of, say, a Nissan Leaf deal where they're paying £200 a month and now £400 a month, and that then sort of puts people off. And I think a lot of the things that I look at these days, leasing can actually be the cheaper option with an EV, because the PCP is great if you do want to own the car after 3 years, but most people these days, they don't want to. They don't own anything anymore. So leasing can actually be a cheaper option where you literally just take the car for 2 years, 3 years, set amount of mileage, and then you just hand it back at the end of it and start again with another leasing deal. And often those leasing deals can be quite a bit cheaper nowadays than actually PCP. So it's another option to look at. But equally, like going back to Paul's situation, I think early Leafs, again, maybe not the Japanese version, the early one, maybe a Leaf Ascenta or a Leaf Technet, the value in them these days is fantastic, because again, the vast majority sold were all battery owned. Very, very few were battery leased, whereas the other alternative, which is worth a look at, is the Zoe, but the Zoe, vast majority were battery leased, not battery owned. So early Leafs, Ascentas and Technas are really, really good value, sort of second hand. So if you are a cash buyer, certainly go down that route. They're absolutely bulletproof. So your costs going forward for servicing and running costs are very, very minimal in comparison to an ICE car. So I would certainly have a look at them if you want to buy something outright. But equally, I've seen some leasing deals recently on Renault Zoes that, even made me think, oh my goodness, do I really need to purchase my EV? Next time round, do I just lease one and then I can have a new one every couple of years? Because again, like everybody, we all like something new every now and again. We like to get the bigger range, but equally for everybody, range isn't key. For John doing 20 miles to work, 20 miles back, not an issue for virtually any EV. But early Leaf, Japanese Leaf, again, as Darren will tell you, you put the heater on in the winter, you lose 10 miles of range just like that. So, maybe try and get one of the more efficient
like a 2012, 2013 Accenta or something like that.
Yeah, if you look on Auto Trader or wherever, always look for where it says Accenta. If it just says Leaf and it's an early one, then it will be the Japanese one. The Japanese ones, again, had a cream-coloured interior, so very distinctive.
Yeah.
Not very good for families, but very distinctive cream-coloured interior in the early ones.
Just a warning.
Tecna's always had a darker interior.
The cream
Right.
interior is not just Japanese. I've got a cream interior, and my car was built in the UK.
Okay.
Oh,
So it's not a distinctive feature.
Okay.
Yeah, I think originally the Ascenta came with either a cream-coloured interior or a darker, and then ultimately very, very few people specified the lighter interior, so they dropped it completely.
Did the Accenta come with the heat pump then, not the resistor heater?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
What was it,
John,
Ivan?
yeah, there was. I'm in the same position as you. So we've got 2 ICE cars. Funny enough, nearly the same. We've got a Peugeot 207, my wife's, which was essentially just a fill-in car for her Fiat Leon, which blew up last year. And I've got a Mazda 6 diesel. So we looked at PCP deals. I looked at finance deals and stuff like that. And for me personally, it worked out cheaper to get a loan. So I'd put a deposit down. I'd then get the rest on loan. And even though the loan is, you pay a percentage, 4, 5% or whatever, year on year, the car worked out cheaper to buy if I was going to look at an ICE car or an electric car because of the running costs. But certainly for me, I'm looking at a new EV because you get all your guarantees, etc.
Yeah.
Certainly PCP, you have got to be careful because they will ask you for so many months upfront payment as a deposit, then a monthly cost, which is essentially what your depreciation value of the car is over that term, and then you get your final balloon payment. The only issue with that is if you walk away at the end of that, I'm pretty sure you lose your deposit, the monthly cost up front, and you don't have a car. Whereas if you go for something like a traditional finance package, you pay your deposit, you pay for your car, and at the end of it, you have a car that's worth a certain value. But it may not be just as clear cut as that. So it depends and we know that battery technology is really progressing really fast at the moment. So it's in 4 years' time, or 3 years' time, or 2 years' time, is the battery technology going to progress and they actually get a better car and use your car as a deposit for the next car? So lots of things to look at on that.
I think by the sound of it then, I think there is no real right answer. I've just got to do my own work, and depending on what I want, where I am, and what direction the wind
It's always going to be the right answer for you, isn't it? Rather than the right answer for everybody.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
talking about my case, if you like, in that I had a Nissan Leaf 30 and I was paying £200.10 a month, £210 a month. I switched to a 40 kilowatt Zoe when my deal was up with another dealer, traded that Leaf in so I didn't have to worry about the finance side of things. And I've now got a 40 kilowatt Zoe, so it's a bigger battery, similar spec car, and I'm paying £250. So whilst there was an increase, it's still an affordable car when you look at a Nissan Micra costing people £200 a month. So,
Yeah.
but I think I chose a case that suited my pocket, and I didn't want to go above two. If I'd spent another 50 quid a month, I could have probably got a 50 kilowatt car, but I just didn't need it. Even with a 40 kilowatt car will do me for a journey anywhere in England. I know the way I travel, I know the speed I travel, and it's all about what suits you. While I'm on the mic, I'll just say that I'm getting a countdown here with this being Zoom. We've got 4 minutes left, so I didn't want anyone get too deep into a topic. So we can fill those 4 minutes, or I can end it now, and I'll just drop you another link. A quick question for Chris. You joined us late. Where did you get the password from, Chris?
Yeah, I came across that, and I didn't know what it was. So there was an option on the Zoom internet page to just join a meeting, and then I just put the reference number that you had on the Facebook page in there, and then it allowed me to join.
So when I restart the meeting in a moment, folks, I will post that in the Yorkshire EV Club website minus the password. Come in that way. I've been finding that if you put the password in, you get all manner of undesirables. Right. So I'll end it now.
Yeah.
I'll send the link straight away, guys.
Can you also send by messenger?
Go on, David. Sorry.
Could you send the link via messenger?
Yes, I'll do that for you, David. No problem at all. Okay. So in the group in just a moment, and also via messenger, and also in the WhatsApp group for the admins. Talk to you in a moment, folks.
In a bit.
Okay.
Just going to find that stop recording.